Jen here. Welcome back to the channel. For those of you that are new, this is a very casual channel, unless or until such a time would come when it would need to be a little more polished, and I had the ability to do that. But right now, I'm just a woman in my home with my dog talking to my phone, basically. So I like to revisit this topic every now and again because of events in the world and how the environment, and that includes the living beings that we share it with, has changed, and how we can be a part of the solution, not a part of the problem. Psychiatry always fascinated me because I feel like when you sit and talk about your problems and you recognize them and you see them and you bring more life to them, that possibly you're manifesting. And I honestly don't like that word at this point in time. Everything's gotten so cheap. It's very hard to get through to people, and the cognitive dissonance that, and the mask that you kind of have to wear around every day just to function and operate properly in quote unquote society or public society today. This channel is about solutions to that of a spiritual nature and how to rise above it, not to be better than your fellow man, but to have a fuller picture of what's happening, be open-minded and hearted enough and not stuck in your own pride to know that your paradigm might not be the only paradigm that exists, and it is possible to exist in more than one at a time, and that they're not mutually exclusive of each other. Dark, light, bad, good, all these types of things. Christian, atheist, Republican, Democrat, all these things that divide humanity. And let me say before we get into this, everything is shared per the Fair Use Act of 1976 for the purposes of criticism and or education. Everything researched is first acquired through Google and its affiliates. So it does not necessarily reflect their opinions or YouTube's opinions, but we are using their platforms to research, and there's a very specific reason that I do that when I do lives, is so that they cannot be censored, because if you censor yourself, then you have to, do it across the board. So there's that. So what are you looking at here? This is a painting by Thomas Cole. Why is it important? Well, let me work on expanding your mind before we get into this topic, because I'd like to dive into it from a different direction that I haven't seen anyone else do yet. And I didn't even pull it up on my phone before I wanted to dig into it, because we know how our ideas seem to be hijacked, and I don't know if you would call that manifesting. Either we're being used to help perpetrate something here, and in times I think we're working for the enemy and we might not even realize it. So what we're going to do first is just work on opening your mind to a new perspective, a new angle in this light spectrum, possibly. So this is Thomas Cole. He was an American-based painter in the 1800s. Beautiful, beautiful paintings. And you can sense right away looking at him that something is different. Much like when you listen to the old school Eminem, you can hear how he's got a different flow, but it's there and it grabs you in a different way than most rap. I think it's because he raps on what I call the offbeat, and he kind of stutters through and drags you through and opens you up to things that you didn't realize were there, musically speaking. Thomas Cole, I believe what he does here is most painters will paint a base, and that they'll use like sienna. And sienna is a very neutral color. It's like the taupe of paint. It's like a brownish, reddish, clayish color. And that's kind of what they use to quote unquote sketch the picture out with their paintbrush before they actually start bringing life to it and using shadows and light. His paintings, I believe, much like Bob Ross, he does a backdrop in black so that the light is more effective, but you still have that darkness underneath it, so you know it's still in shadow. So if you notice this piece over here, shrub on the side of the mountain, how it does have these highlights, but it's still, you can still tell it's in the shadows. Whereas as the tree here, you can see that's all light. I think what he did, what makes his painting so distinctive, is that he used a dark backdrop and a bright one and a white one. He left some of the canvas white and some of it he painted straight black and then painted over top of it. Why am I telling you this and why am I talking about it? And what does it have to do with organic portals? Well, we'll get there in a minute. Again, he was allegedly an American-based painter. I believe this is in West Virginia. I have a postcard of it. I forget exactly what it's called. Now, here you have another one. I believe what we're seeing here is a soul's journey. And he does a lot of biblical paintings, and you can't even tell that they're biblical scenes until you start to unpack them, visually speaking. And this is a lot like the Mona Lisa, how in the Mona Lisa you have like this brightness about her face and head, and in the background there, and then all around that are these darker vignettes. And again, this is to me like a soul's journey. That could be probably maybe Cain or Adam even. And this is when they're in paradise, right? And do you see the palace in the background? And again, this is allegedly America. This looks like pictures I've seen right there of Arizona today. Little different, but basically the same. And you see how there's an oasis there, right? How everything is in bloom, even in where a backdrop is all stone, clay, and sand, right? And then you see this palace, and it reminds me of these shadow palaces that people have been recording in the sky since about 2011. We've been seeing them. The Mandela effect also came to be about 2011. It started to be talked about, but it hadn't gained the traction that it has today. And even searching for it still, you have a hard time finding new information. But that's because we all use different words. Now here you can see the soul's journey. You've got the angel, and you've got Adam, Cain, maybe someone who's being redeemed there, right? And you have like an Egyptian feel almost to the little boat that he's in with the angel there. And I think sometimes YouTubers also look at that Egyptian angle from a negative or from a dark place, when there is something to be learned from their theology and their methodology. And if you read without labeling it, it's a lot like what they did in Christ's time, anointing with oils and herbs, and people that they know being close and nearby. It makes me wonder if, and again, I do come from a Christian paradigm per se, but that doesn't mean I agree with every dogma that is out there, and that does not mean that I'm closed-minded. We've really got to try and get rid of these labels. I do use them to relate to people, but I do not apply them to myself any longer. There's a reason for that. Again, I think it has a lot to do with understanding that there's more responsibility upon people who are seeing what's happening, and upon what I would call souled beings. And a souled being is someone who has compassion and empathy for their fellow beings and would never see them as less than. And that's why I dislike delving into this topic of NPCs, organic portals, clones, because it makes me uncomfortable. But sometimes we have to go to a place where we're uncomfortable to learn new things. Okay? And so I'm showing you these paintings because Thomas Cole was allegedly in America, and we're told places like this are in far-off lands. But what if they're not? And what if flying and flight is all a deception itself as well? And where they say you're going in these flight plans and how you get there. You mean to tell me there's all these people who fly every single day allegedly, but none of them can tell us for certain what shape the planet is? That means either it's a lot bigger than we've been told, or they're all lying, and how can that be possible? I would not be surprised at this point in time if there were, like the Bible says, 144,000 people amongst millions who actually have been awakened or are left behind, however you want to look at it. My hope is that those who went before us or dissipated before us, it's because they went to, they graduated, they ascended, they reached that height in their own understanding of things and understanding of themselves and forgiveness and love, that they just ascended to the next level without some of us. And this is why there are more quote unquote organic portals walking around. And what does this have to do with science? Because again, I've not seen anyone look this up yet. I really need to look at how some of these things work so I understand them. So I want to show you, we're going to do this together. Now, what's an organic portal? Let's start there. If you've never heard of an organic portal, and again, I think I'm the first one to actually look into this angle of things. An organic portal is basically an empty vessel that the good side or the wicked side can utilize at any time, but never at the same time, much like playing chess. You've heard that this is a chessboard. You've seen it in Alice in Wonderland, and they keep showing us the same story over and over again so that we have no excuse. Personally, I think at the end of this, these will all be good things. These will all be used to our good and our benefit so that we can get to a higher plane of understanding. I've personally been focusing on my prayer and meditation. The rosary is a tool that helps me with that, but you'll see that many religions have what's called prayer beads. And they get you into such a state of mind as to where you are less, but spirit is more, and you're better able to meditate on these bigger concepts without your own preconceived notions kind of dragging you down. And so I'm trying to lay the groundwork here for the fact that organic portals, though right now they may be usually and mostly empty and being used as pawns by the light and the darkness. If you're a Star Wars fan, you would call it the Force, right? Christians would call it the Holy Spirit. In Alice in Wonderland, it was the Red Queen and then the White Queen kind of going at it. And that's much how it is. The king can't do much, but the queen can go anywhere she wants on the board, as long as the king is still there and she is protecting the king, which is the opposite of what we're all told when we're raised. It is that the woman made this great error and it brought down the fall of a species. I personally feel that that was meant to happen. It had to happen to spark our free will. What am I getting at here? NPCs, organic portals, soulless beings are not less than us. They are just at a different part in their journey than us. We have to respect them because we used to be them. Every one of us at one time or other had the lights off. We were that way ourselves. And some of us graduate sooner or later than others. For me, I believe in 2017 or 2018, it's very possible that my family, my close loved ones, their spirits were raptured. And again, the rapture is not something I fell in with. I didn't believe it. I still don't believe it in the same way that, again, that other people do believe it. I don't even see it in the same verses they see it in. And so that's also problematic when you say truth is just one way or one thing. Perspective changes every time you take a step and you're in a different location. Your perspective will change, literally and spiritually speaking. So I don't look at these people as being less than. I just look at them at a different part in their journey. I think when you start talking about a group of people being less than, then you're on a dangerous road to genocide. This is why I personally won't get involved in the baby martyr debate, and I call them martyrs. Some people call them sacrifices. I refuse to give that to the dark side, to Moloch, to Baal, to Baphomet. I will call them saints and martyrs because that's what I choose to do. And how I choose to look at this picture or this game or this school of refinement but I don't believe it's a simulation. I believe all of it's real. I believe that we were made a beautiful garden and something other came into that garden and now wants to take it and claim it as its own. I believe in more than one thing. The Hopi prophecy says at the end of days, things will walk the earth that were never meant to. Now, I believe that everything that's meant to happen does happen, but I don't believe that we can be passive. I believe we have to be participants in the spiritual aspect. But as far as being participants in what's going on, like with the baby debate, I won't get involved because that's a losing battle no matter what side you're on. If you say that mothers shouldn't be able to do that, which I agree we should not do that, but if you say they should not be able to do that, then you get into the dangerous waters of, okay, well, now her body is open to a lot of other things like injectables that will lead to that debate. If looked at in that way, will lead to that happening, to the government having a say over a woman's body and what is put into it or attached to it. Now, again, this is all spiritual. This is all coming from a spiritual place. I want to look at this from a little different angle, though. Is there a way? Does this happen at birth, or is this an all-the-time thing when some people seem unable to come out of that state, or they are stuck in this empty vessel state, or they choose darkness? Is there some genetic proof or scientific proof of this? Does it manifest in the physical like it does with some of us? And again, there are people on every side of this debate. I saw somebody saying that NPCs are obsessed with their dogs, and most people would say I'm obsessed with my dog, but he is my best friend through all of this. He's listened to me. He's been there for me. And so, of course, I love him. Most people will experience an NDE and come back more compassionate. They don't want to eat animals. They, start walking down a different path. And I feel like that's where I'm headed. Now, physically, where is that going to take me? I don't know. But as I've said, we've been greatly deceived and lied to about where we live, the location of where we live, how to explore that environment and how to interact with it. It's all been skewed. Again, the good news is that I believe this will all lead to good. But again, is there a way? Is there something happening? For example, clones. All right, I showed you how the word clone was just the same. It was synonymous with twin, right? And I know that Project Paperclip scientists and engineers were extremely obsessed with twins. However, if we consider that, put that on the back burner, and we remember back to IVFs and the big debate about that. I was a child when all this was going on, but there's a show called Evil on Prime. If you haven't seen it, you might want to take a look at it. It's very bizarre. But Baphomet makes some appearances, as does Bigfoot. All the things we've talked about on this channel. Again, it's like, are we having a psychic awareness of what's coming into the realm and what they're trying to show us? Are we manifesting it? Or just anticipating it with this telepathy? A lot of us are recognizing we have these new or awoken abilities, and I don't believe any injectable could give someone a gift, for example. I believe that all comes from God, and this is why I have a hard time with clones personally, because if they don't have a spirit, then what's animating that body? But what came first? Well, this IVF stuff came first, right? Now I want to see the science. What happens here? And would God give these beings souls? If man is playing God, do you think that God would then bless this life and bless it with a soul? Much like a marriage, when you marry someone who you're not equally yoked with, who is entirely different than your culture, who it's just for lust or money at first sight, right? And then a few months later, the truth is in front of you. Will God bless those unions? Well, not often, because this is why I think we have a lot of divorces, because people just are marrying and doing things in this place for the wrong reasons. This is my personal belief. You don't have to agree with me, but let's have a discussion, an open and adult like discussion about these things. So where does this come from? When man decided to play God all those years ago, when the first IVF began, would God bless these little beings with souls? And if God does not, then what are they a vessel for? And again, I don't believe any being is any less than any other being. But we have seen where it seems like these people are on scripts and they don't have time to actually go to acting school. I told you about all the data I found about the acting school and the acting classes, and it's almost like the spirit of my original spouse left all this stuff behind for me to find. And this one that's here now, I mean, he doesn't even, there are things that a man should know about his wife that my husband used to know about me that he has no, he is surprised to find out about now. And that's concerning for someone who is in a relationship with one of these people, but who is also extremely empathetic or compassionate. You're like, man, so what do I do to help the situation, right? And then you notice, like I said, that every now and again, you'll get clues from these people, like breadcrumbs that just fall out, kind of like when you go through an RPG game, right? And you go and you talk to all the villagers and you have that one person who's always giving you clues or missions or places to go. I feel like that's what they do. Like the wheat and the tares were right beside each other, and these tares are being used to feed us information about the game and quote unquote game. Again, I look at it kind of seriously. Most people would say too seriously. But if you want to look at it as a game. So is God and let's say the devil, if you've seen that picture of Jesus fighting or playing chess with the devil, the force of good, the force of evil, can they use these beings intermittently and in spite of or despite one another? And this is the question that I pose to you. And do these people have souls? I think it's worth looking at, not because, again, I think that we should, I'm a pacifist. I do not condone or promote violence. That's not what I'm speaking about. I'm saying we have sovereignty, and these people cannot tell us what to do. Literally, they can't tell us what to do. We are above them in the hierarchy if they are in a soulless condition or a condition where they have compromised their souls to another being. This is why I'm trying to stop bad habits. People hate the word sin. I don't know what other word to use. Transgressions. Because the less things you do, the less legal rights they have to torment you. And I feel like God is giving a lot of us this lesson right now. Some of us have to take on more responsibility because, and not the soulless people, but the ones who are just willfully asleep, the ones who just maybe knew the truth but went back to sleep, or the ones who are just totally ignoring it. I feel like this is all a lesson for all of us. So during IVF, mature eggs are collected from ovaries and fertilized by sperm in a lab. Then the fertilized egg or eggs are transferred to a uterus. So that's much like when I plant my seeds, I'll plant like an extra one or two just in case one doesn't take. But then I have to cull them, or I have to separate them, or I have to let them grow together until such a time, much like the harvest, right? With the wheats and the tares. So, a woman can go in, these eggs are frozen, right? Like if God gives a soul at conception, that would mean when the egg is fertilized. And if this is happening in a lab and not inside of a woman's womb, that person who's doing it is in the role of creator or maker and is in error, right? Like we can cooperate with the source God, the God of light, right? The God of love. We can cooperate, and we have to cooperate and participate in his or its or hers plan for our salvation or for our betterment or our refinement. We have to agree to that and come into cooperation with that. But when man is doing something where he is placed in a role where he doesn't belong, like the role of God, of course, this is only going to breed negative or bad consequences, dark consequences. But who's going to have to pay for that? The higher quality eggs and embryos, the better likelihood IVF treatment will be successful. And I also believe this ties into the abductions. They are literally stealing people's DNA. But again, you have to know your own sovereignty. You have to pray every night before sleeping and say, I do not consent to anyone entering my space as I'm resting. And you have to ask God to watch over you. Okay, and I'm trying not to get too religious here, but this is what we should be doing. I know from experience, because it works for me, and that's why I do these videos, is to share with you guys that these things work for me. So this tells you the 4 stages, and all of these things, again, are done in a lab. So let's change tax here and look at a couple things. Now, I found a couple of these in the descriptions of people's channels. I've looked at them before, but I know they're updated from time to time. So, this article is about empty people. Now, when I first started waking up in 2018, I called them empties. I had never heard the terminology NPCs. I didn't know what that meant. But again, I don't look at anyone less than. If you missed the beginning of this video, you might want to go back. I don't want to go through the disclaimers and all that again. But that's what I called them, was empties. Now, again, how does IVF and how does the possibility of cloning, which again, cloning means twin originally, how does that play out, and what are the consequences, and is that part of what we're dealing with today? God and science, or the maker, creator, the spiritual, the ether that you cannot see or grasp right now in the physical, and science are working together. Science is the proof that there is an intelligent designer behind this. So again, I believe the outcome will be all good for those of us with awakened souls. But we have to talk about the fact that recently, in the last few years, there's a lot more of these beings. They seem to be being utilized and have these scripts. They would not have time to go to acting school or acting classes, I believe, for all the amount that they would have to conspire about such things. What we are looking at is definitely spiritual, but where did it come from? And how can we be a part of the solution and not a part of the problem? So this person goes on to say that matrix agents or empty people, puppet people, cardboard cutouts, drones, organic portals, I sometimes call them paper dolls, background characters. Why do these terms even exist? Because out of necessity, they had to be invented by those who independently notice the same puzzling phenomenon, one for which there is no official name. Some people seem to be missing something very important inside. While they are not necessarily any less intelligent, successful, or physically healthy as anyone else, they nevertheless show no indication of having any higher components to their consciousness. And this is true. Look at how many horrendous acts happen with people standing around filming it with their phones, and that's it. Like it's just content, right? That's just content you use to manufacture views, which is used to manufacture currency, which is used to fall into this materialism. So again, I believe that certain things had to happen for us to be awakened, but I do believe that some went before us and some will go after us, and that ascension might not look like we've been told it looks. I've had a lot of strange experiences with death and the rituals that we go through regarding death. And that's a real hard one for me to explain. I'm still trying to put it into words that will benefit people and not just confuse people more, because again, those of us who have creative abilities need to stay on as high a frequency as we can, because that does help those around us. So again, I don't believe that anyone should be treated as any less than. The point is to know this is happening and how to best operate or navigate through these experiences. It says, over the years, I've received emails from readers who came to the same conclusion, and so have I. I've talked to so many people, and the original channel really had a good solid group of steady people who were there all the time, and we talked a lot about these things, and we know they're real. My objective is to find out where they're coming from and what we can learn from it and how to best operate with these things happening around us. And again, I don't even believe that certain cops, I believe a lot of this is fear tactics to keep us in one place, in the same place, and to keep us from gathering. They obviously do not want awakened people gathering and together, and I don't know why we're not instigating this. We should be initiating an exodus of a sort. We should not be afraid of anything at this point, and we should not be so attached to our material things that that distraction becomes more important than quote unquote solving this game. It's like if you played a role-playing game like Skyrim and you decided to stay in the first village that you come upon and you never left that village. It defeats the purpose of the game. Sure, you might have side quests, you might accumulate some money, you might even get to buy a castle, but you won't get to finish your true mission and accomplish that and the real rewards that come from that. I hope that makes some type of sense. So again, I don't believe anyone can even tell us what to do when you are dealing with these other beings who seem to be at this point just empty vessels that dark and light are using to use to communicate with us and drop clues with us. I think a lot of people ascended already, and I think that we may be at a point when this filtering process is coming to an end and we're entering a new age. I sure hope so. But that might be the way everyone feels when they reach this point in the journey. I don't know. Maybe that's just me. Maybe I'm the one who's getting that feeling. And I don't want to project that onto anyone else. But again, these are philosophical, theological questions that we ask when faced with dogma or paradigm structures that are built around us that we were just born into and didn't help to build, as far as I know, in any way, shape, or form. So this observation is not hard to miss, but it is easy to rationalize away, which is true. Many people, you'll get gaslighted by people everywhere. Oh, that you're foolish. Oh, you're talking crazy now. What you talking about? Let's go get our grub on. Let's go get some food. They always want to fill you with food because that will lower your resonance. The quickest way out of anything is what you accept into your body, into your temple. And so if they can distract you by getting you to unconsciously drop your frequency, lower your vibration, that's what they will do. They will distract you. Anytime you try to get on an important topic about actually solving this puzzle or this place, they will go to something totally material to distract you. Hey, let's go play this video game. I know you like that game. No, I want to figure out in real life what's going on, and because I don't think we're supposed to be just sitting around, quote unquote, working, waiting to expire, especially in this time. Again, that could just be me. So it is easy to rationalize away, especially with modern society being so heavily brainwashed. There's a severe sense of cognitive dissonance, even with those who are sold, but are still not quite awakened yet. You'll bounce from paradigm to paradigm, right? And realize that there's a glass ceiling in each one, in the politic paradigm, in the entertainment paradigm, in the religious paradigm, in the governmental paradigm, but they're all connected, and that they are all distractions and they are all meant to be divisive and create this enemy and to get you basically to look the other way. So what should we be looking at? Well, we should be looking at these spiritual things. We should be discussing them. However, that we also have, again, we have a responsibility, those of us who are awakened and who seem to be able to manifest or anticipate certain things, we have a responsibility to maintain a higher frequency to help those around us. Maybe they don't know how to do that yet, and just by being around us, our frequency can rub off on them, so to speak. I really hope this is making sense, because it makes sense in my head, but that's not your head, I know, right? Is anyone even here? Hi. The background, the idea of empty people first dawned on me in 1999. Now, again, you'll have people for whatever reason. It's always when they say there's this end of the world scenario coming, right? In 2000, it was Y2K. In 2012, it was the Mayan calendar was ending. I think that's with a purpose. I think the fear is pushed a lot, but I think that, again, it's everything to the source's purpose, and there can be no waste. Things will be recycled, if not, refined. They will be recycled and used again if they can't upgrade or ascend. And that's where I don't want to end up. I don't want to end up some primordial soup, background sludge being mixed in with all the extra paint lying around. And I don't think anyone wants that, right? But I don't know that you would know it was happening. But I do believe you have to participate to allow yourself to be refined, okay? So this is fascinating. It's almost like ascension does happen for small groups of people in different areas at different times, but it's usually only for those who actually have the courage to gather, right? Christ, there was 12 apostles plus him, and then you have the females, because a couple of them were married. So Christ, that caused Christ to ascend. That caused his mother to be raptured, her whole body. Moses's body was key. They tell us our bodies don't matter and we bury them 6 feet under. But what happens to a soul being that's regenerated, and they're stuck down there, right? I think these questions might sound outrageous, but I think they bear looking at, because nobody else is looking at them. And I think that's key here. When something trends or goes viral, run in the direct opposite direction of that for truth. Where the masses go isn't where the truth flows. And I don't even believe that those numbers are real. The viral numbers and digits and whatnot. I don't even believe that those are indicative of what's happening. But I do believe that when we see something that's trying to trend, or they're trying to push in our face, that we should look the other way. And the light will guide you too. It's not just darkness here. And I think that's an important thing to note. We can't get caught up in just the darkness. So this seems to happen in waves, right? So this person did a lot of research into sociopaths, psychopaths, their condition being medically known as APD, or antisocial personality disorder. Now, people would say that about some of us, right? Some of us have talked about this, about how we're more solitary. And, I think for some of us, it's just that there's no one close to us that can relate, right, to the way we see life or how life is unfolding for us. My experience was looking up like sociopathic behavior and narcissistic abuse, and that's how. Much love to you, Dion. Thanks for being here. Good morning, Mary. I hope you're doing well as well. Thanks for being here, guys. Maybe that's late. So yeah, for me, it was narcissistic abusers, trauma, all these types of things I started looking into. And I recognized that, wow, there's a lot of narcissists around me. And then I read this psalm, and I don't know if it's something I manifested. I don't want to get into it right now because I've talked about it briefly in other videos. But I started noticing that certain things I said aloud or certain things I read aloud were starting to happen. And again, this is why I believe some of us have a responsibility, if we're still here, and our journey's almost over, or we've ascended to a certain point in knowledge. I don't exactly know how to describe this. I just know that everybody leaves this place in the time that they're meant to. But what space do we leave? Because I've seen people here that supposedly had passed away. Again, I don't know that we necessarily leave Earth. Eden was created for us, okay? So some of these concepts can be hard to grab, but when I speak of spirit, I'm speaking of the ether, scientifically speaking. That stuff that you can't grab, the Higgs boson, the molecule, the atom, they're all still physical manifestations of something occurring in spirit. And spirit needs looked at as well, because it might mean invisible, but it doesn't mean non-interactive. Because I've seen spirit do a lot of physical things. I just couldn't see spirit with my eyes, much like the wind, right? You see the effects of the wind. You know that it's the air that's moving about, but you can't see it. You can't see the wind pushing something down. You don't actually see the wind. You see debris in the wind and dust and dirt. Gosh, I hope all this makes sense. So, this person's interest grew, and they were forced many years to suffer under someone whom I later learned had all the signs of being a sociopath. I can definitely relate to that. Heartless and soulless were descriptive terms, but little did I know just how literally true they were. I had noticed in this person an emptiness behind the eyes and a very shallow, conscious essence, which seemed to be at the root of the behaviors I observed. Definitely making sense. Thank you. I feel like such a geek sometimes. Like, who could possibly understand me, right? Like, I don't know. I think people think I think differently of myself or something, like that it doesn't come through how insecure I am in my own communication skills at times, and just insecure in general. Now, here's the thing. My spouse has showed this behavior over and over again. That thing has not changed. However, at one time, for a period of years, my spouse seemed awakened and had morals and values and was trying to wake me up at a certain point in time. And then it just stopped literally overnight. I woke up and he was an entirely different person. It was like that spark was just gone. And so when I talk about a spiritual rapture, the vessel remains. But that's not the case with Mary, and that wasn't the case with Moses. So how is this happening or occurring? Well, that's what we're here to talk about, because I don't exactly know, and I want to get your feedback. Like, what do you think is causing this? And will any of us ever actually be ready to gather and set aside our material desires for what, Paradise Island or the amusement park has to offer? And will we actually set about being explorers in this realm and trying to put these pieces together? Okay, what has happened here? Who are we? Because at this point, I'm starting to feel like we're the leftovers. Like, we are a dystopian society, and we just were never told such. Like, we weren't told about it. And I wouldn't pay much attention to what's going on the screens that they show you as far as quote unquote news goes. And I have a whole, like, 5 tabs saved and organized for current events that are happening that are all just a little strange. But again, I'm leery to show some of that because we have to keep our resonance nice and high as possible. Samir Unlu. Nope. I don't know what your nope is in response to, so. Yeah, maybe just write it all in one sentence. I'm not really good at texting, so they just act good. And again, this is up for debate for a period of years. I believe that these people had values and morals, and they're completely different than they used to be, and it was overnight. Some of it, yes, it's absolutely me, my perspective changing because I woke up. They just act good, as you know, they act like they have a soul. But I don't think you can pretend that. You can't pretend to, like, I think people are trying right now to do that, but I don't think they're pulling it off. Um, they're looking at us and they're copying us, and this is why we're seeing what looks to be like a script around us. And again, I believe the Hopis really had a handle on this. Their Hopi prophecy states very clearly that there will be beings that will walk the earth that we were never meant to, and there will be two paths that we can take, and one is technology and the other one is not. And this is what I'm talking about as far as exodus and gathering. When will we, myself included, just got a tent that's all my own. And again, we don't have to agree about everything. To me personally, I've had that behavior with a lot of these beings. They get very angry if you don't agree with them. And I'm just here to learn and share what I've been through, and hopefully others get it. I don't know. I'm not going to stand on any one theory right now and say this is exactly what's happening, because I don't know. Most things I like to have some kind of evidence for, because like I said, even spiritual things will manifest in the physical. I really think you need to reflect deeper on your husband and look at every little thing. Again, I don't know that you and I have talked before, so you've probably not heard the whole story. You can think what you want. Right. And I will think what I think. But again, I'm not here to argue with you. I've heard what you're saying from other people as well, that, well, these people just pretended for a very long time. It's really like Legion. It's like something has taken over these people. Now, can we get our loved ones back? I don't know. Tell me to reflect deeper on it. This is all I think about all day long, every day, is why are people like this now? Why are so many unreachable? What can I do to help the problem? I've been making videos for 3.5 years about all of this. I had a different channel, but I had to move everything to this channel because, again, people wanted me to agree with them, when I don't think it has to be like that, right? Like, we can share our experiences and with each other. I'm at a peaceful place with all of this at this point in time. I think that's our responsibility as souled beings. We have to not let our emotion take hold of us, and not let our anger or our frustration or our any of those darker things. I think we need to not let that take hold of us. And so again, I'm open to any possibility. But I want to see some real evidence of something at this point, because for me, it's like I'm not even dealing with the same person. But were my eyes just open? Did they change, or were they always this way? Amen, sister. Thank you, Dion, for being here. It's really appreciated. This is why I don't like to refer to anybody as an NPC or an organic portal. This is why I stay away from this. This is why I stay away from Mandela effect mostly, is because people are very angry and they like insist upon you agreeing with them, and they don't want to have an open discussion about these things. That's not going to get us anywhere. That is the old way of thinking. That is being stuck in your own opinion and theory and perspective. We're all standing at different angles in this spectrum, much like a diamond, which creates a spectrum, has all these different angles. We're each at a different one, so our experiences affect us all in different ways, right? So for me, I'm not ready to give up on my loved ones. I think that's a part of the trick here. I don't want to call it a trick, because I believe the Creator is good, and I believe this will all work towards our good in the end. It's just getting there that's a lot of hard work, because you have to be willing to be told you're wrong. You have to be willing to be humbled. And people don't understand, they mostly don't understand the conflict that you face within your own heart. Like looking at a person and saying, okay, I've loved you for most of my life, but you seem to be an NPC, or you seem to be like a portal for just all these random beings, right? I'll tell you this, a woman knows her husband very well, even if he thinks she doesn't. And a woman knows her children because they were inside of her. I think it's very important at this time that we should not denigrate the female, but we should be raising it up a bit. And I don't mean in a feministic type of way. I mean in a honor and respect type of way. We're all made in the image of God, and that is for a reason. And women bring new life into this place. We are real co-creators. And so I think we have a real handle on what is and what is not spiritually speaking. However, I think using definitive terms like this is this or this is that, I think that really kicks in, what is it called? Reverse causality, the law of reversal. Um, because you're pushing that extreme. And when you push one extreme, oftentimes that will boomerang back at you and it will give you the opposite of what you're actually trying to achieve. So I try to stay middle ground and balanced on all of these things now. I try not to be led by emotion. Although I will admit these beings have made me very, very angry because I miss my family. I miss my children. Again, I'm a mother. I used to be able to feel when one of them was near or far. Even my spouse, I could feel when he was near me, or coming, home or whatever before cell phones and all that. And I don't feel that tug in my soul anymore. Something is wrong, something is changed, and something is different. And yes, I know that people don't like listening to women, especially right now. There's this, if you feel anger in your heart, I've missed you, Katie, bunches and bunches. I love you bunches. I'm glad you're here. Thanks for being here. But if something somebody says brings you to a real quick anger, you have to step back and say, okay, wait a second. Why did I so hastily and unnecessarily and unprovoked go to an anger or defensive posture? That means you need to look at yourself and say, okay, what's in here that I need to, can you feel it in the air, just the air hanging around you? Yes, at times, absolutely. And I believe that there are other beings here. But again, for those of us who are co-creators, we have to really stay at a higher vibration, because lower vibrations lower resonances will attract these things to you. And I know this from experience because that's where I was. And yes, the ether around us is alive. There is no empty space. There is no, it looks empty around you, right? You breathe in the air, you think it's empty around you. I see the desk in front of me, but it's about 5 feet away. Well, what's in between me and the desk? A whole nother world that we just can't see yet. And that's what I mean when I say our deceased loved ones are not gone. Like, because I've seen a lot of them walking around and interacting with the environment. So either the curtain is dropping and the veil is dropping and things are changing, or I myself am moving closer to that spirit realm, and maybe I will get to quote unquote graduate soon. Is that how it works for everybody, each individual? I don't know, but I have read a lot of people who come out of this dark night of the soul. The closer you get to the other side, the more of these experiences you tend to have. So my next question would be, why are so many of us having these experiences? Is there a physical, scientific thing we can look at and point to and say, this is... The veil's definitely lifting, and I'm sure you are ascending. Hi, Jen, Katie, and chat, lurking on the plantation. Hey, guys. Dion, that's a very uplifting insight. I appreciate that. It's full of depth, too, and I appreciate that as well. So yeah, when looking at these things, we can't think in terms of like more than or less than. There is nobody less than another, because that's a dangerous road. And those of us who are closer to the spirit realm at this point, those of us who do seem to be manifesting, and you don't have to raise your hands or say who you are, but I'm speaking to you right now. We have a bigger responsibility, and that is to stay at that higher frequency. because again, there are other beings lurking around, and we have to not attract them to us and those of us who don't understand how to work yet or how to operate. It's so hard to explain some of these concepts still, and this is why I take breaks, because right now I know that certain things I have either anticipated or caused to happen around me, and I know I have to stay at a higher mindset, a higher frequency, you know? So when talking about these things, it's very important that we don't get stuck in our own perspective and pride, and that we show compassion for our fellow man who's also going through something similar, just in a different way, right? The same cycle, just at different times, and maybe in packaged differently. Okay. So behavioral and psychic characteristics, their behavior tends toward being glib, shallow, egotistical, narcissistic, mundane, predatory, and materialistic, which is all under that heading of materialistic. Sometimes these traits are camouflaged by a polished social exterior. And this, I think, is what our new friend was talking about. And I can get on board with that, absolutely. They copy us. This is why they have one of us around them. Keep your friends close, your enemies closer. They want one of us around them, number one, so they can see how we best operate, and they can manipulate us and bring us down. But they have to follow the laws. They have to do it legally. Whereas souled beings, those of us who have the souls, we don't have to follow the law. The law is made to protect the innocent, right? We don't have to follow that law because we're given souls. The law is on our heart. If we want to break the law, God has said, you can, but I wouldn't recommend it. But these other lower level beings, they have to follow these laws. Like they have to stay on the spider webbing, right? They can't go in between. They can't break through here, there. They can't do the portal thing. And, there has to be legal entry reasons for this. And again, I'm looking at physical events that occur, and I'm trying to relate them in a spiritual way so that we can best operate and navigate here in this realm. I'm not here to teach you about abundance. I don't preach some prosperity gospel. There are other channels and other people for all that. And this is why my channels stay small, and I'm fine with that, is because this is not meant for everybody. Sadly, not everybody is at this point yet, and some will be left behind when we ascend. I do hope the process itself is over soon and we can all just be together and get to the next point. And I think in the next point, we're going to have to work together because we're going to be manifesting our own reality. God is going to say, okay, here, now this is yours. Now that you've gotten rid of this thing attached to you from original sin or whatever, this darkness, now you can work on your own environment. And I think those of us who are awakened have a real heavy load right now to carry. We have to stay away from the negative because our eye gates don't affect just us, right? When we take something in, it's not going to affect just us, but it's going to affect those around us, which is why we have to learn how to maintain balance and a proper equilibrium for all of this. Saying strange that Jod. I don't know who that is, and I also don't watch a lot of other channels anymore for this reason. I want my thoughts to be organic. I want to be a souled being. I want to operate as a souled being. That people are already leaving, but in the spirit, yeah, I personally think that's what's happening. But I just because spirit means invisible to us, I don't think it means intangible, if that makes sense. Because again, I've seen some interacting with the environment and doing these things. And I do believe that the garden was originally made for us. So I don't necessarily believe that we leave, right? And that the body is still here with another being. That's what it seems like to me. Again, I'm a mom, so I might be biased in some type of way, like not wanting to see the flaws of my children, but I knew their flaws, right? That's why I look at them now and I'm like, man, I don't know who you are. I'm still supposed to love you, I guess. Scripture tells us to walk by faith, not by sight. And, this old theory, like, plus 10 years. I don't know what that means. I'm sorry. I'm horrible with texts. So anyway, it seems like this has happened. It seems like because some people ascended or left. I kind of heard it all and tested it to be false. Oh, yeah. See, I've also experimented with my own reality and tested a lot of things. I don't want to put certain things out there and tell anyone else, like, this is the way that it is, because honestly, for them, their story is different than mine. And certain things, yes, will maintain the same. Certain things, God's laws of certain ways and certain things cannot be broken. I don't think the hierarchy, for example, can be broken. Those of us who have souls, there's more expected of us. And we tread upon serpents, meaning they are below us in the hierarchy. And so we don't have to do what they say. This is why there's so much manipulation happening, is because they know that they can't force us to do anything. They know this, right? They already know this. Now, were these people always like this? My theory, and because, again, I've seen in the spirit and I've seen certain things around certain people at certain times, I believe certain people were more open for this. Their vessel was more open for this. And so for me, it was the eclipse. During the eclipse, at that time period, something happened that allowed something else to take over these vessels. Whereas normally you might see them, quote unquote, die. And again, I don't believe in death anymore the way that most people do. Gosh, this is so hard. This is why I take breaks now, is because I'm getting to a spiritual place where everything here seems fake to me, except nature, except for, animals, trees, people. Everything else seems very contrived, like theater, like all of it seems like theater to me. And I don't know if that's good or bad, that I'm feeling this way or perceiving things in that way. But it all feels like a giant lie, like I've been lied to my whole life about what this place is and how it works and operates. And looking back, almost everyone I loved and trusted has been swapped out or changed at some point. My mom was like so hands-on. She was such a good mom, and she even smelled a certain way, right? Kids don't forget that. And she left for a short period of time when I was a youngster. And when she came back, she was different. She kind of even looked different. And she went to California, and I think a lot of this has to do with what's going on in the state parks. I think the Yeti are controlled by what's in the sky. That's why you often see them together. I think the fallen ones control those those beings. And I don't think they want to be controlled like that. But they're not sovereign quite in the way that we are. I think, again, we're all here for a lesson and a reminder and a wake up and how to work together. But right now, the key is knowing your own sovereignty and how to use it. It's not just for your own self and for your freedom. You have to share that with others. You have to pass it along. This is why, okay, for example, Christ was the shiniest person ever, right? I don't want to talk about his divinity now. We're just going to, because Catholics even believe that he was fully human. So we're just going to talk about that. He was fully shiny, right? He was the shiniest person you would ever meet. And so a couple of the people that he was physically near, that he taught the most, that were with him the most and heard his words the most, right? This actually affected them physically in the world, and spiritually they were able to be freed themselves. The point in knowing your own sovereignty is sharing that with others and passing along that light, that torch, and saying, guess what? You're a sovereign being. You don't have to go along with all this. But I don't have a choice. No. You are sovereign. There is always a choice. And not just one or two. There are as many as you choose there to be. Right? But because you're sovereign, once you actually realize that and you recognize that, you have to use that to the betterment of your own soul and the soul of those that are around you. And I think once you get to this place, once all the lights are on inside, right, and everybody is home within you, I think then you ascend to the next level. But I don't necessarily believe that level is physically above us, or that it's not here. I just don't think we can perceive it. I think it's there. I just don't think we can quite see it yet, much like that painting in the beginning of this video that I showed of Thomas Cole's. Like a mirage. Right now, it's almost like a mirage for us. But for me, again, am I getting closer to that point? Am I going to graduate soon? I don't know. But I just know that I'm seeing everything in an entirely different way than I used to. And it's coming with great responsibility on my part in understanding and not in saying, okay, they literally know not what they do. They don't know what they're doing. I need to just remember that and keep that in mind and do my best to maintain that sense of balance. Now, I was really fascinated when I first started waking up, when this trauma because I was awake as a youngster, and then, like most people, I just fell asleep, right? I fell into the world. You have to do this, you have to do that, you have to do this, you have to do that. But when I first started being awakened, and at certain times now, and it's shocking when you see it, is I could recognize this being talking to me through different people. Same thing, same MO, same manner, same type of ridicule or venom they would spew, but out of different people at different times. And I'm like, what is going on here? And even certain people, I could see on them that they were just dirty, like their sin or their darkness. I don't even know what to call it. Much like the black goo, but spiritual goo. And it fascinates me because now I'm reading about like certain people in the past, mystics have been able to read hearts, it's called. And basically you just know what somebody's spiritual problem is, right? Pride, your problem is pride, or your problem is alcohol, or like you just know these things off the top of your head. So I think that's also a component here, is we're dealing with something in us has awoken, some ability, some telepathic thing has awoken, and we don't know what to do with that. We don't know what to do with it. Did we always have it? Was it just now flicked on? And what does that have to do? Why are some of the people around us able to perceive of that, but yet they're stuck in darkness on all these other things? And that leads me to, well, these people know what they're doing. They know in their minds what they're doing. They know how it's going to affect us. They know that when we're fasting, they shouldn't be pushing food on us, but they do anyway. This is an example. They know we're trying to smoke, yet they smoke around us more, right? People who are pushing lower vibrational behaviors upon us when we are trying to get out of them. Again, this is the battle of the wheats, and the tares being right beside you. And I do think that one element, spiritual element of this, knows exactly what it's doing. And it's using different peoples, but especially our loved ones, to get us to cooperate. And I think one of the ways that we're cooperating, and I've said this over and over, that we should not be doing, but nobody seems to care how many empties are around them. They just want to make their cheddar. And I have to be blunt here, that is known as, well, what is it called in Pinocchio? Paradise Island or whatever? It's not real, guys. They don't want us to gather, so we should gather. They don't want us at a higher vibration. They want us in fear, so we should not be afraid, right? Anything that's pushed on us, we should run, not walk the other way, the other exact opposite way of that, right? If the world is trying to tell you right now that there is no God, then you know there is a God. And that's the thing, is this darker element, it knows there's a component of it that knows what it's doing. So what does that say for our loved ones? Are they still in there? Can we reach them? Or are they gone from this place? Well, I know one thing. And this is where you get into the lore of things that might be hard to accept. Now, this person says soul or spirit is missing, and I'll agree with that to a point. There are empty vessels around us that are used basically like chess pieces, but these theories aren't often mutually exclusive, guys. We have eyes and ears, right? That's more than one sense. That's more than one thing that is true, speaking of our senses. So the same is true in the spirit realm, okay? So we have these empty vessels being used. Okay, that's one component, right? We set that aside. Let's get into a little lore real quick. Angels are said to be shapeshifters, okay? I am seeing that there is a lot of biblical truth here. I'm not saying that I agree with how it's taught. I'm not saying I agree with the church institution of man. Every institution that has man in it is corrupt in a way. Every single institution, I don't care which one it is, because man is corrupt, right? The whole purpose we're here is to become shiny. So we have to take that off, right? We have to take off that dirty garment. But anyways, angels are said to be shapeshifters. If that part of the biblical history or narrative is true, and one would think it is, with all the tales of Enki and Enlil, only the names are changed. With Greek mythology, with Norse mythology, these are all different sects, right? Because Satan didn't fall alone. Lucifer did not fall alone. So there are tribes of these bloodlines, just like there are tribes of God, 12 tribes of God, right? And if angels really were shapeshifters and they really made hybrids, are these people indeed our family, or is it something else that took our family's place? And again, I believe this happened with my mother, and that was years ago. But it might just be to such a point now as to where we have to have some type of divine intervention, and the maker and creator of all this has to say, enough, stop polluting the gene pool, stop with this madness that you're doing. I told you this once before. But why would God allow it to happen again? Well, I've come to the a working conclusion, meaning it can be changed, that God, maybe he wants them saved too. Maybe it's time for them to realize their full potential. I find it hard to believe God can extinguish anything that has a piece of him, even if it's by proxy. You can't kill a part of yourself, right? So what can you do? The best you can hope for is to take that fragmented piece and heal it and welcome it. So again, these are some different concepts and perspectives than most people talk about, but I want to know what you think about it, because I think all of these things cumulatively have affected our realm and our experience here. And I think God is also waiting for man to ante up and say, okay, I'm responsible for a lot of what's happened here. Mankind, womankind, both of us. Honestly, though, women are pretty accountable. Women have had a hard road to We've had a hard road to toe. I forget how that euphemism goes, but anyways, Adam was there too, and I think Adam has a responsibility. And right now, there is a negative force really affecting our men. I think they definitely need prayer, but I think they also need shook awake. Like the chosen king used to say, you need to shake the bed and wake them. Shake the bed, wake them up, right? I don't know that any of us gets out of here without all of us graduating together, maybe the other ones are just waiting on us. I don't know how that part works. But I know that we have to start looking at it from a more light-filled perspective. Let thine eye be single and full of light, meaning don't let darkness into your eye gates or ear gates as little as possible, unless it's for research purposes. That's something that I do, but I balance it with a lot of prayer and a lot of time in nature, which I think is key for a lot of us smaller content creators, because we really are I mean, let's face it, we're the philosophers of today. Will we be recognized? Probably not. Nobody will remember our name. Nobody even knows my name anymore. But that's not important. What's important, again, is passing that torch or passing along that shiny spark to others. Christ, we know Mary ascended with her body and everything. Peter and Paul, I'm not so sure about. We know that John obviously had a revelation himself of the apocalypse. So out of, maybe 20, 50 people that knew him the best, there's only a few that actually we know of that have ascended. So that's why I say if you're shiny and you're awake and you're coherent and you kind of know what's happening, you need to maintain as high a frequency as possible. And you need to you have a responsibility to pass that light on and say, hey, guess what? You're a sovereign being. Wake up. Remember why you're here. We're not here just to get caught up in the day-to-day, and I know people don't want to hear about this. They're so caught up in the mark of the beast and currency and who's going to do this and who's going to... Are you ever going to see any of those people? I'm not. I will probably never meet the person who plays Elon Musk. I will probably never meet the person who plays the king, right? They don't affect me at all. I want to know the truth of this realm. I want to know how to graduate with honors. I want to be better than I was yesterday and hopefully better tomorrow than I was today. And that doesn't mean thinking you're more than or better than anyone else. Actually, it means humbling yourself and saying, okay, I will serve these people because I know they're not awake now, but eventually they will be. But I know right now they know not what they do. So this is why I think NPCs and organic portals, it's a dangerous topic, but it's one that needs looked at, and it needs looked at because it makes us uncomfortable. That's why we need to look at it. Now, this person goes on to say, therefore, I will call this higher spark spirit and define it as follows. Spirit is the core of individualized consciousness, that permanent aspect of one's being represented the true self. Now, let me also say this. It used to be known, and I don't know where I read or got this information, but it does ring true. So let it bounce off of your inner truth detector, your inner bell, and see how it sounds to you. Soul was the inner trinity, right? It was mind, body, and spirit. So our bodies are important to this process. I think people have gotten misled because they want us wandering around without bodies like they were for a long time. I think this is the Nephilim Antichrist time. But what does that mean, right? Well, that means that a lot of players here on the board are filled with that Antichrist spirit. And I think some of us, we can all always be used for good or evil, right? It's a daily decision we make every day when we wake up. We have to decide this day, right now, who will I follow? Because you're always following somebody, right? They call research because somebody else already searched it out. We're just researching it. I'm bringing up this old material so we can look at it and get to know it and understand that we're not the only ones feeling this way or talking about these things. But what do we do now is the solution. Well, we allow ourselves to work and operate with God for our own salvation and our own refinement. If those words scare you, just replace that with the word ascension. I don't want to do resurrection, or I want resurrection. I don't want to do reincarnation, because to me, reincarnation implies that you have to have that veil of forgetfulness, and I don't want to do that. I don't think we learn that way. And people will say, well, if you're a Christian or you follow Christ, how can you believe in reincarnation? Listen, Christ talked about a lot of things that were severely misinterpreted. And just because resurrection is totally possible does not mean that reincarnation is not as well. I believe they're two different things. And I've made my choice, right? But your choice is up to you, right? So this channel is solution-based. I don't want to be a part of the problems, but I do delve into darkness to show people, okay, this is out there. This muck and yuck is out there, and somebody's using it. and might be using it against you. How do you defend yourself in that? Well, again, you become as bright and as shiny as you can, so that either those around you will also become cleaned up just by being near you. They will know the truth and pass it along. The keys to ascension, the keys to the castle, right? But you don't allow it to infest you or infect you or infiltrate your temple, and your temple is your body. People used to know this. I don't know why they don't know this anymore. But that's enough on that topic for today. I'm going to end this, or nobody will watch it or benefit from it. I know I got off on a few tangents, but I will upload. I got several uploads that I have to do about current events just because they are very interesting, and I think there are things people need to be informed about. So watch for those today and tomorrow. But this weekend, I would like to do a bigger live stream, but I want you guys to decide kind of what it's about. Do you want to look at the astronomy of this day and age again? Do you want to look up the Hobie prophecy? So watch for a survey that I'm going to do over on the community tab as well. But PC and NPCs, organic portals, listen, they shouldn't be treated any differently. And remember that once upon a time, you were one of those background players, right? You have to want to wake up. That spark within you has to want to wake up, and God has to reach out to you, and you have to reach out to God, just like that painting of Adam. And sometimes it's very possible and true that we've been lied to about this realm, what it is, and how it operates. And that has a lot to do, believe it or not, that has a lot to do with how you operate and what's going on here. So I would strongly suggest, spending some time and reflecting on certain things and not getting stuck in pride, because it's very hard to admit you've been lied to your whole life about things. But I think there's a very big deception going on regarding the landmass and travel and planes, and where we actually are. So I think you need to be strong. And I think we will be with our family and friends and loved ones again. Everything that's meant to happen is going to happen. But we have to participate in the process, right? And I want to end up in as high or as happy, joyful a place as possible. So I'm trying to just go through it all, here, and end up okay on the other side of these, traumas and whatnot. And hopefully we're in this together, this ride together, this journey. And your journey might look different than mine, but we are the same. We are going through the same things, just at different times. Do not get caught up in the media. Do not let it take you down. It is literally the beast. Don't get swept in by that, because a lot of it is, again, just acting. Be strong. I'm not telling you not to have compassion for people in other countries or to pray for them, but if you're not seeing it and touching it and feeling it with your own self in this place, it's probably a lie, right? I do believe it's time we had an exodus. I do believe it's time like-minded people gathered so that we could really see how we manifest things here. And I think it's time we did that and co-created a place of harmony and peace away from these technologies, because I think if we're too caught up in them, we're going to get caught up in the main deception. And that's what I'm trying to avoid, and hopefully you are too. So I'm going to go for now, and we'll get more into this from a scientific standpoint. But I did want to touch base on this again for new people, kind of let you know where I stand on that and the Mandela effect. I'm very open about it, but at the same time, some people in those paradigms can get very insistent and very belligerent if you don't agree with them. And I'm just all about learning, man. There's very few things or people I agree with right now, because coming into agreement with another is very dangerous at this time. So please be careful with that. I love you guys. More soon. Watch the channel. There's going to be a few current event uploads that you should probably take a minute to make yourself aware of, or at least click on them so you can go to the link yourself and read them at your leisure. I love you. Bye.